What is up, guys? It's your boy Brennan, aka Drip, back with another video. In today's video, we have a tier list slash counter guide to some of the decks in the upcoming format for what we know so far. Recently, I made a video, not a video, I made a post on my community tab asking you guys what kind of content would you like to see from me. A couple of you requested like side decking, counter guides, and counter guides to meta and stuff like that. This one will be the video for the counter guide, or my opinion, what's the counter guide for a couple of these decks, how they interact with these decks, and how you can interact with these decks with these cards or cards similar to these, because some of these I may have left off a couple of cards, whether they be in side deck staples or main deck staples. Just let me know in the comments down below if I missed any. I can't really think of every Yu-Gi-Oh card in the game. If so, then I'm just cracked. But the decks that we're mainly going to be talking about are the ones that we kind of seen or kind of knew that was at Vegas, which will be Kashtira, Labyrinth, Sword Soul, and Branded. Obviously, everybody else dusted off their other decks, their fun decks or other rogue decks, and took them there. These are mainly going to be those because as of right now, my personal opinion, Sprite, you can argue Sprite in there too. But the ones that were listed, I listed, are going to be some of the top tier ones in my personal opinion, and the ones to look out for. Obviously, you do not need to be taking Sprite for granted. Expect that deck. But we'll talk more about that when we get there. But the first deck that I know a lot of people are probably going to be wanting to talk about, which will be the Kashtira matchup. We can talk about that one first, and cards that are good against that deck and cards that are not good against that deck, in my personal opinion. I play Cash, so I know that deck very, very, very well, which obviously is still very young in the format. I'll get better as I go along, but we're going to learn together. We're going to start with Bell. Bell, I think, is a very sleeper card this format, but I don't really think it's that good against Cash, mainly because like the only time it can really come up against Cash that I've noticed so far will be in the mid to late game, unless you're trying to hit them in the early game to stop their birth. So I'm just going to put it either at C or B. C or D. I put it at C because depending on the situation, if they bricked, it would be pretty good. Even though you're still probably gonna go neg because they're gonna hit a card out of your X deck if you hit a unicorn or something like that, or a Fenrir. If they use a Fenrir and then try to do something else, and then summon something from the grave, then yeah, maybe it'll be them. But Bell is not that good against Kashtira. Moving on will be Contact C. Contact C is one that I've heard a lot of you bring up, which a couple of my friends have brought this up too. It's a pretty okay card against Cash. The only thing is if they open, all right. So if they special summon a Kashtira and they have and you give them this, is if they're playing any kind of Link 2, they could just link into that and use the Contact C and use the birth to bring back whatever they linked off, and then just continue to combo off from there if they open birth, because a lot of Cash players are going to be now playing 3 birth. 3 births is pretty much mandatory at this point, I feel, in a Cash deck. If you're playing less than that, then something's wrong, or something. That card is absolutely mandatory to keep you in the game and keep you extend through nib if you get nibbed. But with Kashtira, this is like, if they're not, I mean, I don't know. I'll put it at a B because in a certain situation, I can maybe, I don't know, B or C. I don't know. I'll just leave it at B, and you all can determine from there after the information I've given you where to put it from there. But against Cash, it's not that good, in my personal opinion. Next will be Cosmic Cyclone. I mean, I don't know why you'll be siding back row removal against Cash, because most of the decks in modern Yu-Gi-Oh have like outs to like 1 or 2, like maybe back row within archetype in engine. I mean, I'm gonna say this is bad mainly because like the only things you can really hit will be the preparations, the planet, or the birth. Planet, I mean, I guess if you already main deck it, might as well hit the planet upon activation before they search. Excuse me. But if you hit like the preparations or the birth, they can just get it back by banishing a Theosis. So it's not a good hit. Um, and then obviously that means Duster's not good either. It's just it's just not. It's not a back row deck, so there's no real reason. Even though it's not a back row deck, that brings me to my next thing: evenly matched. Evenly matched is one of those cards that, excuse me, it's one of those cards that's always like going to be good in almost every format, but I really feel like it's going to be absolutely busted this format because if you didn't watch any replays and stuff from Vegas or you didn't watch it live, which I knew going in, it was going to be absolutely disgusting because there's not very many decks that put up Omni Negates right now. It's all just interaction and interaction with your board or not giving you a board, hence Kashira. But since that's the case, Evenly is really going to shine. So it's even better the fact that it is now even more available through the Trap Trick Structure decks. If you don't have the Trap Trick Structure decks, go to your local OTS store, support your local OTS store, or go to your Walmart or something down the road and get it. Because this card alone will single-handedly pay for your structure decks further down the road if you need to make money back or something. But Evenly is hands down S tier against Kashtira because it banishes them face down, and which granted they can get them back. They just have to go the long way around and go through a Rise Heart, the XYZ, to get them back and then link it off or Zeus it off or whatever to get them in the grave to keep going off to get them face back up again, which is a long way. But by the time they get around to doing that, if you let them get that far in their game state, you are probably going to lose that game anyways. But this card is absolutely a blowout card against them, which it's pretty much a blowout card against almost anything. But against them, they lose everything, and they have to make a choice to where they want to keep their birth if they have it, or want to keep their Shangira. Sorry, I can't talk. I can't think. Keep the Shangira in order to keep your zones locked. And I mean, you want follow up, bro, or you want to make sure you win the game or something. So it's like I don't know. It makes the thinking hard, and depending on what else you have in your hand, you can follow up with and crack the rest of the board. But Evenly Match is absolutely like cracked against Kashtira. It's one of the best cards against them, honestly. Next will be Imperm. Imperm is one of those ones that's uh it's like very good, but in some situations, some decks it's like very bad. But with Kashtira, it's really good if your opponent doesn't have nothing to follow up with and you time it properly, which most competitive like Yu-Gi-Oh is anyways. In the past like 2 or 3 formats, hand traps have been like kind of mid. Some of them have more better than the others. It all comes down to properly timing them and what else your opponent has in their hand. Because if you just shotgun your hand traps, then and you know it's not going to be as high impact, you're going to have a rough time. Because if they have the extenders, then they just play through it and makes it seem like they didn't even have it. But imperm at the right time is very good. I'll go ahead and put it at A tier. You could argue B tier. It's not necessarily S tier. It's not because if they have a theosis or a birth, they just play through it and you just went neg one indirectly as where this could be an extender. But I will keep it at A tier for now because if they drop when they have um if they when they special on the Fenrir, if they have the Fenrir or the Unicorn, let's say the special on the Unicorn, because Unicorn is a 1 card combo. If they go full combo, let them go full combo, and then make sure they get they burn through their Theosis. Once they burn through their Theosis, and if they have birth, if they burn through their birth, wait until they bring out the Rice Heart, the main deck one, because he's the one that usually helps them extend. When they bring out the Rise Heart, imperm them there because it makes it very hard for them because at this point they are a main Mind Hacker. Granted, everybody should be playing around Mind Hacker at this point anyways because if you want to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, I know it's kind of shitty because you have to play duplicates of your combo pieces, but you have to do that in order to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh with Kashtira and play it through and well, not play through, but play with Kashtira basically. So that let them do their mind hacker shenanigans or go to the Shangira. But a lot of people won't make Shangira until they bring out the Rise Heart. When they bring out the Rise Heart, hit them there because to a degree that is a Achilles heel for them. Like that's one of the crit points for them. But they have a couple of crit points. But granted, that might not be enough to slow them down depending on the rest of their hand. You just have to concentrate and see what they're doing with their combos and stuff like that. So basically, if they've already burned their Theosis, you hit that stops them to where they can't really extend any further, and they're forced to end on a end on a Shangira and something else if they can, some other monster or just that monster, which is like very beneficial for you. So that's the best timing, the best way to time your impermanence. Other than that, if you hit the Fenrir or Unicorn right off the bat, and they have a Birth or Theosis, you just lose because even if they don't have that, they probably have a Pot of Prosperity to dig for the rest of the stuff that they need. So your impermanence just kind of neggy. So just hold it for the Rise Heart or the Mind Hacker if you want to. This against them is just no. Obviously, it's only good for back row. Lava Golem is S tier because it clears the board. Now, granted, a lot of people play around it, but I get it. I get it. Trust me, I got Lava Golem a lot playing this deck so far. But at the same time, if you're going to play the deck, a lot of decks can just end a lot of decks can out the board that you make to play around Lava Golem, and that is making that a lot of cashier players were making a Rise Heart pass. Macrocosmos is not going to get you that far anymore. What I mean by that is if you don't know, the XYZ, a Rise Heart, is basically a Macrocosmos. You don't have a graveyard. Everything that would go to the graveyard is banished instead. So a lot of decks can kind of counter that now, but they're just dropping a hard Imperm on you or a Book of Moon or whatever, and they can combo off. So like I would rather make my full board and then make my opponent draw the out instead of making a half board and then drawing the out to that and then just completely OTKing me next turn. So, but Lava Golem is still very, very good. It's good against them. It's good against almost anything. But yes, Lava Golem is definitely S tier. Lunar Eclipse is I can put it at S tier. It's just very situational what decks can run it because you have to discard and it can book 2. So it's very good. Not much really needs to be said about that. Now this one is kind of bad because even though it is the negate, I'll actually I'll put it at C. I'm sorry, I'll put it at C because it's still a negate to say the least, and they don't really link that much, and they won't get the burn if they're overland. Thank you, Tanner, if you're watching this video for helping me out with that ruling. I kind of figured that's what it was, but I just wanted to double check because I didn't want to tell anybody wrong. But yeah, Ghost Mourner is not that good. It's just basically an enhanced effect veiler, if that makes sense. Now Nib is S tier because it just says no. It just wipes the whole board, and they don't make omni-negate, so they can't stop you. Just wait until they try to declare end phase and drop that on them. Unless you're playing against the Ibly lock, and then you just cry. If you're playing the against the Ibly version, Nib is Nib. And now a little tech that I was thinking of being good against like a lot of decks, which I was thinking against Kashtira, which is really good. I'll put it. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put it here or A. I'll just put it A to be safe. Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. It's very good. It's a Regeki that gives you and your opponent a monster. Basically, you just give them the weaker one. You take the bigger one if you just need to push over it. But it's basically a full board wipe that is very good. So I'll put it at B tier because it's kind of meh depending on the situation. They can protect themselves and stuff. Lightning Storm, I'll put it as C. I know no cashier player is going to be putting like their stuff in attack position, but in certain situations, like a lot of people will put their Arise Heart in attack position, and then you can just blow them out like that. Because another thing too, the Shangira can protect itself, so like it's a C tier in my personal opinion, or lower. I'm just being generous at this point. Back row, Twin Twisters, no. Ultimate Slayer now is another one I need to talk to you guys about. Ultimate Slayer is very good, but it's also very bad at the same point. The reason why I say that is I'll go ahead and put it at I'll just put it at B and meet in the middle. The reason why is because this is very good in theory, but what a lot of people don't know is you have to send it to the graveyard in order to get the bounce. And with the rise card on the board, there's no graveyard, so this card cannot activate. So it's just a dead card in your hand. But if they don't have an arise card on board, then you just clear their XZ or whatever else they may have, if that makes sense. But it forces you to have another out in your hand before this card gets good. So, but you can argue it'll be a lower tier. I'm just going to be generous again and put it at a B tier. Effect Veiler goes hard in the paint. I'm going to same reasons that I told you about impermanence. You can do the same thing with Effect Veiler. Zeus is just very good. Granted, this is not a side deck; it's just an extra deck staple. Like I said before, this is going to be side deck and main deck staples if you can run them. My personal opinion, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, almost any deck needs to be able to run Zeus, or there's no reason to try to play it competitively because it's just too good, because it just completely board wipe. Because even what a lot of board breakers have against Kashtira is if you break their board but they still have birth, they're going to remake the entire board and OTK you on the next turn. So the number one thing is you got to get rid of the birth. And the best way to do that is Zeus, because Zeus is a one card break the entire board and forces them in a top deck situation if they didn't draw or go for the follow up. So Zeus is mandatory. Ash is like mid. I'm gonna put it at B, because if you Ash them while they have Unicorn, they're ripping your extra deck there, and that's not optimal. You don't want that to happen. But you can still hit them in a serious moment with their Theosis. If they open Fenrir and they special Fenrir instead of Unicorn, that means they don't have Unicorn, but they have the Theosis in hand, which means that they're trying to get to their Unicorn. So if they go Fenrir and then use Theosis, you just Ash the Theosis, and then they have like 3 cards left in hand, and you just probably win at that point, unless they had Birth and then they opened like something else like an ogre. But then at the end, at the very least, they're going to end with preparation and then Shangira, which a lot of decks should be able to easily break that, but that's not very optimal. Droplet is kind of bad because it's like a worse version of Imperm or Veiler against them if you went first and had that set. And then if you're trying to play into a Shangira, it doesn't matter. Shangira is a lingering effect, so you have to get it off the board in order to get your zones back. So it's not that good. Dark Ruler is the same thing. Dark Ruler is not that good. It's the same thing as Droplets. It's a lingering effect, so it doesn't matter. So now you just lock yourself out of being able to do damage. But this is S tier, the Book of Eclipse. It's better, arguably better than Book of Lunar Eclipse, mainly because it books the whole board instead of just 2. And then some people argue that Lunar Eclipse is better because you don't have to worry about it getting Ash, because a lot of people don't know Book of Eclipse can get Ash because it gives your opponent the ability to draw cards during the end phase equal to the amount of cards that are still left face down that were originally booked. So that's I like Book of Eclipse more, in my personal opinion, because it just gets rid of everything all at once, and I don't have to worry about that. But that's the tier list for Kashtira. We can go ahead and move on to Branded now. Branded is going to be a different situation. There's a lot of things going to be different. Start off with Bell again. I think Bell is A tier against them, because if they don't have Branded Lost up and then they go Branded Fusion, this can really stop their combos where they can't use Lebellion and they can't use any version of Lebellion, or their Albion. Sorry, I can't think again. Their Albion. So I really think Bell's going to make a serious comeback this format. In my personal opinion, people are sleeping on her. But yeah, Contact C I think is S tier because they don't run nothing with Earth. So sending this on them is like almost an FTK in a certain degree. Some can, like if they're running some awkward builds, could probably get through it, but for the most part they can't. So you just basically win at this point when you drop this on them. This card is absolutely nuts against almost everything, literally almost everything besides Kashtira, unless they run links and stuff, and then if they run generic links. But for the most part, like this against Rogue is just mid, but like against the top tier decks that's not Kashtira, yeah, this card goes buffalo chicken in the paint, barbecue chicken in the paint. Sorry. Um, and then as for cosmic, eh, cosmic is okay. I'll put it C. It could be worse. The only real optimal hit you want to hit with them would be the lost, so you don't have to deal with it. Everything else, I mean, I guess you can hit and still prevent it from happening, but they're just chained to it or stuff like that, so it doesn't really matter. So I'll just put it at D actually because it's only one good hit. Same for Duster. Evenly is very good. I put it at A tier against them, potentially S tier. I'll just go ahead and keep it at S tier. It just breaks the entire board, and they're left with one card, which then you just have to play through one interruption instead of like 3 or 4. Imperm is very good against them because if you imperm, if they don't have lost up and you imperm the Labellion or Albion, then you just win from that point, depending on what else they have. Because then they can't get into their Mirror Jade, they can't get into their new monster or anything. Whatever they're trying to make, you stop them in the middle, and it's like literally the crit point for them. So, but yeah. Lance is not that good against them. Obviously, they're not a back row deck. I mean, it could be okay, I guess, if you're trying to play around an imperm or something, but no. Lance is not that good against them. Lava Golem is A tier, I think. I think it could potentially be S tier, but if they have a Brandon Red set, you're just going to get cooked anyways by the Chimera or whatever else they may summon. So, but it's still good to clear the single problematic problem card. Book of Lunar Eclipse is very good. I think it's an S tier in my personal opinion because it just books 2 of their cards. But again, with the same situation like Lava Golem, you can get cooked on during the end phase or later on in that turn by the Brandon Red if they have it, or their trap card or whatever else, whatever card they may have. Um, then Mourner, I think Mourner is an A tier against them because if they go like Albion or whatever or Labellion, you just pitch this and negate that if they don't have lost up, and then if they ever try to fuse that away, whether through polymerization or any kind of thing, anything, then they just burn for it, and that's a good. I mean, it's pretty good against them. So, but it's not like super impactful, but it's like in a better imperm to a degree with the more plus and when it's getting closer to time. Nib is mid, I think, against them because they play around. They. I don't think they summon enough, and if they do, then it's a win more, and they're overextending. They don't need to. So I think it's B to A tier. It's just whatever you think, or if you want to main it, you can. But I don't know. I'll keep it at B to A tier for now. But I still think it's worthy to main deck in my personal opinion. Interrupted Kaiju Slumber I think is B against them because it breaks the board, but yet again, you're giving them a monster that the Brandon Red or whatever else they have, they can use whatever you give them as fusion material for their interruption on your turn, if that makes sense. Lightning Storm is not that good against them, but it's okay at the same time. It's B to C tier, in my personal opinion. Twin Twister, back row note. Ultimate Slayer is actually really busted. I would put it at A tier potentially because if not S tier, because if they end on the Mirror Jade, it's it's an S tier. If not, then it's potentially A tier. The reason being is because they can't respond to it with monster effects, and you don't have to worry about no Macrocosmos effect with them. So yeah, Ultimate Slayer is very good. It's arguably S tier. I was just trying to keep it more like subtle and keep it at A tier. Effect Veiler is like the same thing with the Imperm and everything like that. Zeus is okay against them. It wipes the entire board, so you don't have to really deal with anything. But if they have a Mirror Jade, then you have to worry about the Regeki during the end phase. So you have to, it applies a lot of pressure to kill in that turn, or have follow up to where they can't, where you simplify the game state with Zeus, and then you kill them on the crackback if you can. Ash is absolutely god tier against them. You let everything resolve unless they're playing in the patchwork engine. Then you have to be a little more like, you have to be more there to understand because they can still make their cards with their patchwork engine if you're not too careful. But mainly, if they're not playing the Patchwork Engine, you let everything resolve until they get to the Brand of Fusion. And then you hit the Brand of Fusion, and you just basically win at that point. Granted, they can still make big booty monster fusions without Brand of Fusion, but if you hold your Ash for the Brand of Fusion, that is the most value you're going to get out of that in that matchup. So, Droplet is A tier to B tier against them. The reason being is because it's good against everything in their entire deck besides Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade, they can still send for cost and get follow up on the crackback during the end phase. So, but it is still very good against them to where it hits everything else. And in the certain situations when they're trying to push over your stuff, if you set it and you pass turn to them, you can activate during the battle step or whatever, and they can't redeclare and they just lose their monster. Dark Ruler is the same thing, if not worse. I'm just be put it at B tier because it's not a quick play, so it's not as good, and but it does take care of the whole entire board. Um, Book of Lunar Eclipse is very good, I think, as long as you have a way of like, for example, you pair a Book of Lunar Eclipse with like I don't know, this or something else. Just paired it with something else. It's very solid. Um, but it still applies pressure to where you have to be able to crack their board that turn. If not, they're going to go +4, +5, and then you lost. That's the only thing. So don't activate it unless you can crack the board. So like basically, if you go Book of Eclipse, and then you can find a way to make Zeus, and then Zeus clear the entire board, you're Gucci. You're sitting pretty good. But if not, then no, they're gonna +4, and then you just lose from that point because like I saw the YCS, this guy drew 4 cards during the end phase and then proceeded to like kill his opponent the next turn. I can't remember if it was Couch or not during the finals. I think it was. I can't remember. But no, yeah. So like you have to be aware of that. Now we are going to talk about Labyrinth. So we talked about Brandon, we talked about Cashier. Now let's talk about Labyrinth. Uh, Ghost Spell is kind of mid against them because it can only really stop the big welcome or whatever when they're trying to banish from the graveyard or whatever. Other than that, it can stop that the terror of the Underroot or whatever that card is. The one where they take one out of the graveyard and then one on the field and swap it. It can hit that too. Other than that, it's kind of mid. And then Contact C is terrible because they don't really do nothing with the extra deck. They're a back or a deck trap deck. So what are they going to do? Cosmic is B tier, I think, against them for the same reason. Bell, you got to hit the big welcomes and the welcome labyrinths. I'll just put it at A tier because it's backer removal. Duster is S tier. It just completely like gets rid of all their cards and puts them in a top deck state for the almost. Evenly is God tier. Like if they're better than S tier, I'd put it there. It just completely blows them out and forces them to be in a simplified game state to where you haven't even played yet. So you just win from that point. Evenly is just nasty against that deck. Imperm is not that good. Potentially bad against them. Only time it's ever good is if they summon their normal summon monster that searches. I can't remember her name, but she searches one from the deck to the hand because you can't really hit Lady with this because she can't be targeted when they have a normal trap set. So this is kind of like poo poo against them. But they only come up that one situation when they normal summon their one monster. Lance is absolutely cracked against this deck. No matter what you're playing, because you can like if they skill drain you or whatever, you can use this to make it to where it's not, and then proceed to like combo off or get rid of the skill drain with the monster if you can. But yeah, Lance is absolutely cracked. Golem is B to A tier because if they overextend and they have Lady on board, and then they go get the other one. I can't remember her name, but she makes it to where you can't respond to the trap cards and stuff. They end on those two. You just clear the board with Lava Golem and then proceed to go off. But yeah, Lava Golem's B to A tier against them, my personal opinion. But that's just me. Lunar Eclipse is like, I mean, okay, I guess. Put it C tier. It's only good if you're trying to prevent them from getting more advantage and like get more traps and stuff. But I mean, it's okay, I guess. I put it at C tier. This is like kind of bad because their stuff is never going to leave the field anyway, so it's like a worse imperm. Nib is terrible. They'll never do that. Uh, this is probably C tier. If you're just trying to clear the board, then maybe. But other than that, just regular kaijus. For the most part, one thing I will say real quick, if you see me talk about this card for the other two, whether it's branded or Kashtira, this is not just for interrupted kaiju slumber. It's also just it's the kaiju slumber, but kaijus at the same time. So whether you see this card or you main deck kaijus are really good against those other matchups. So I want to say that now, so you can go back and compare it to what else I've said before too. But yes, against Labyrinth, this is not that good. This is Lightning Storm is absolutely cracked. It's Duster. It's evenly, but not as good as evenly. Twin Twisters is okay. I mean, it's still back removal. That's all that matters. This is Dog Water because they're never going to summon anything from the extra deck. Effect Veiler is not that good because the exact same reason. Lady can't be targeted if they have a normal trap set. So Effect Veiler is never going to come up. Zeus is very, very good. If you can find yourself getting in a situation where you can Zeus them, it's S tier. But if not, it's just A tier because you're going to be forced to play through a lot before you can even be able to get to a Zeus. The only reason why I'm putting it at an A tier. Ash is absolutely godly against them because if you have Ash, you let everything resolve until they get to the welcome or big welcome. Those two cards alone, if you stop those two cards, it makes it harder for them to get any further ahead in their game state, and they just potentially lose at that point. Granted, it applies pressure to you to beat them the following turn or that turn if they activate them on your turn. But if you have Ash, just save them for the big welcome or the welcome, and you'll be in an okay state. But Ash is very good against them. This could be Copium and could just be A tier against them because a lot of their stuff doesn't really matter. But I really like Ash. She's a generic hand trap, so I'm putting her at the S tier because of the welcome and big welcome. Droplet is okay. It doesn't target, so since it doesn't target, it can stop them in their tracks when they're trying to get more traps and stuff to get further ahead. So yeah, Dark Ruler is the same situation. Since it doesn't target, it can make it to where it will negate Lady's effect and stuff, and then you can crack the board, get rid of her. Once you get rid of her, you just have to worry about the traps. You have to get rid of her first, to a degree, before you can get rid of the traps. Because if not, they're just going to keep getting ahead by using Lady. So you have to use a Droplet and Dark Ruler which those can help you to get through that. Granted, these could probably be B tier, but just for the simple fact that they don't target against Labyrinth, I will put them at A tier. But again, guys, this is all my personal opinion. You can take what you want from this. I'm just letting you guys know how I feel and what I think is good against these cards, against these decks. Book of Lunar Eclipse is like, Book of Eclipse rather is, it's okay if you're just trying to get her face down so you can try to get rid of her without like proccing anything. I guess, but at that point it's not that good, but it's okay at the same time. If you're trying to protect your own stuff from being targeted, then yeah, it's really good because this will book your stuff too. So it's okay. It's B to C tier. I'm just, for the shit and the giggles, I'm gonna put it at C tier. But that's the cards that I have listed right now that are good against Labyrinth. Now we're going to move on to Sword Soul, and then after that, we'll be done with this video. So moving on to Sword Soul, because I think Sword Soul is going to be a very good rogue deck. I think Bell is going to be kind of mid against them, mainly because their stuff banishes for cost. If it didn't banish for cost, it would be a lot better. But since it banishes for cost, you can't really stop the 10 use or anything like that. Only time it will come up is if they go Shaman and they're trying to revive off of Shaman. Then Bell would be really impactful. Contact C is mid. The reason why I say that, because Contact C is a 6, and Sword Soul likes 6s, so they could just use this and another monster to make a 10. or make 11 if they wanted to, if they had a 5 or whatever. Moral story, they can make their 10s off of this, so not that good. Potentially C tier. I'll just put it C tier. Cosmic is bad because I mean, if you really want to get rid of the one of that bad in blackout, then sure. Bad against them. Evenly is blowout against them. Imperm is godly against them because I think I'm the only Sword Soul player in this freaking world that plays Dragon Circle still. Everyone says it's bad, is annoying. Every time I hear someone say Dragon Circle is bad, I just get really annoyed. Because whether they're running Imperm or not, or a fake veil, there's a lot of stuff in this game that targets. If you're playing Sword Soul against Kashtira, they're shit targets. You chain Dragon Circle, you get pluses off of the card that they were going to get rid of anyways, and it goes to the graveyard instead of being banished, my guy. So you plus, and you don't have to worry about losing it completely forever or making it harder for you to get it because it's in the graveyard now. So no, Imperm is S tier against them because a lot of people are not playing Circle for some reason, so it's very good. Lance could potentially be very good against them because it can make it to where your stuff doesn't die to blackout if they're going first. So Lance is A tier, I think, against them. Or if they run, since they are a mid-range deck, they can play like 9 to 12 hand traps and be Gucci with it. So they will be playing Veilers because it's a tuner, and Imperm because it's another good hand trap that does not play into Thrust this format. So with them playing that, this will be very good for playing around the Imperm and the blackout and stuff like that. So Lava Golem is actually absolutely disgusting against them because it's almost impossible for them to go first and not play into it unless they're going to end on a mediocre board with just one card, one monster. So you just let them go first. You drop Lava Golem on them, and they don't have a worm now, so now they can't activate their blackout, and you just got rid of all their interruptions with just one Lava Golem. So yeah, it's S tier against them. Book of Lunar Eclipse, I feel, is very good against them. It could be A tier because if they're going first, it's very okay. If they don't if they have blackout, yeah. But other than that, it's very solid because if you have this set and you went first, you can flip their stuff since this is a quick play, and then they can't synchro it off. They just get the token. So this, I think, is actually very good against them because it negates it, and if they synchro it away, there's no real way to get it off board without synchroing with it, that it goes to the graveyard, so then they will burn. I think it's very good because it gives you what Imperm gives you while burning them at the same time, and game 3, when you hear, that's time in the round, boys, and they're like, what do I do now? You lose. So it kind of helps, too, with them burning you with Long Young, that you can use this in order to negate their stuff and burn them at the same time. Nib is A tier because I would put it at S tier if it wasn't for some of the people who actually go Baron because they're scared of Nib. But I'll put it at A tier because a lot of people go the Sinister route. They go Sinister, Long Young, and then they go Shishao, and then they'll have Monk or whatever, or just Shishao and Sinister. And they play into Nib pretty hard. So yeah, I mean, not much needs to be said. I put Kaiju's or Interrupted Kaiju Slumber as A tier 2 because it clears the board, and if they didn't go Baron, then it just wipes the entire board, gives them a Kaiju, you get a Kaiju, or you just drop a Kaiju on their most problematic card. In this case, if they didn't go Baron, would be either the Long Young or the Shishao. But yes, I think it's very good. It's a very good card against them. Lightning Storm is, I think, A tier. The reason why is a lot of people don't put their cards in defense position when they play Sword Soul because Shisha only has, I think, 1,000 defense and has 2,800 attack, so they need that beefy stat. And then since they did that, they just still forgot to put Sinister Long Young or whatever Sovereign in defense position. So they like to put their stuff in attack position. I don't know why. I put my stuff in defense position, except for the Shisha. I'll leave it in attack position, but everything else I put in defense position. So Lightning Storm is very good against them. Twin Twister, no. If you can run it, Ultimate Slayer is very good against them because, obvious reasons they can't respond to it. Valor, very good. Zeus, very good. Not much needs to be said about that. Ash is kind of mid because it's a little too late at that point, so I'll put it a B tier. Droplet, very good, doesn't target. Dark Ruler, very good. Book of Lunar Eclipse, very good. None of these are really S tier, but they're still good enough to where they're almost S tier. They're borderline S tier, so they're good enough to where they can like help you clear the board. Because like Feg Baylor is actually I take that back. Sorry, Feg Baylor is S tier because it's the same reason why it was like with the imperm and stuff like that. It just stops it stops them completely. And if they don't play the Dragon Circle, that's such a bad card, even though it's busted because it gives you a plus on almost 2 separate turns in a single card. But yeah, if they don't run it, then they just get punished. So that's their fault, not ours, right? But the rest of them are very, very good. The reason why I put Ultimate Slayer in the A tier is because a lot of people have enough room in their extra deck to run synchros or enough to counter the all the cards. But if you do have room, I would run Garua and Intis as your fusions, add Ignister Pegasus for the synchros, or if you don't have that card, you would run Omega to shuffle something back. And for XZs, I would just run anything that you could potentially make on your own. And with links, I would run the Tri-Brigade, one, the Ferret. So you can draw one, put one back. That's just so you know, that's what I would run if you would run Ultimate Slayer. And you have the room in the extra deck. You don't have to run all those. You could just run 3. You only need 3, but you can run any combination of those 3 or 4. 4 because you need 4 for the summonings. But no, that's it for this tier list, guys. I know this is a very long video, but I had to cover a lot. If there's other archetypes you would like me to cover, just let me know in the comments below. If I missed a card that whether you know is good against these matchups or you want to know if they're good in the matchups that I may have missed off of this list, let me know in the comment sections down below. I love to hear from you guys. I love talking to you guys. I love you guys so much. But with that being said, it's your boy Brennan, a.k.a. Drip, signing out till next time, guys. Peace. Good dueling, my guys.